and welcome back to Darvanalee Design Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reid, and today we're here for Crafting with Dee-Dee's, and we're doing something a little bit different today. We're going to do some foundation paper piecing. It is part one of a 4-part series for the month of October, where we're going to be making a Halloween mini quilt, and the first block we're doing is Dee-Dee's Here Kitty Kitty. So let's get started. No matter where you're watching from, thank you for taking some time out of your day and spending it with me while we make the Here Kitty Kitty block. Now this is block one in a 4-part series, and what is going to basically happen is this week we're going to make the kitty block. Next week we'll come back for, on Thursday we'll come back for block 2, and so forth and so on. And then in the last block we're also going to do the assembly for our mystery Halloween quilt-a-long. So let's get into it. All right, so we're going to do some foundation paper piecing for the next couple of weeks for Crafting with Dee-Dee's, as I just said in the intro. So you're going to need a couple of things. You are going to need some rotary cutters, a presser roller, or your iron, it doesn't matter, that's like an optional extra. You're going to need some paper scissors and a paper rotary cutter, so I have the two. You're going to need some thread snips, you're going to need a glue pen as well, and of course you're going to need the pattern piece, which you'll find over on our website. That will be all there for you. And the rulers that we're going to need today are, you can use your normal quilting rulers, so if you're new to foundation paper piecing, you probably don't have these specialized items. So basically you just need a quilting ruler that's got a clear 1/4 inch mark on it, and how good is that? The rulers just slide under there, it's perfect. Or you can get these at a 1/4 plus. So I'll leave a link down below where you can get them, and this one obviously comes with a 6-inch and a 12-inch for those bigger blocks. Okay, so it's got a little lip on it, so you can butt it right up against your fabric when you're going to cut it. So if you've got one of those, grab that out as well. If you don't, it doesn't matter. Okay, it does not matter at all. So I can sit that under the ruler. See how good is that? The legs, the feet is working on it. It's really, really good. So I thought to celebrate Dee-Dee's Spooktober, we do a stitch along, and I thought it'd be great if we actually did a little bit of a quilt along as well. So and there's another ruler that you can get as well. This is a 1/4 inch ruler as well that I got from the quilt show when I was down there with my friends. We went down for the 4 days, and this is a flip and quarter ruler. So you get all sorts of different ones, but I like to use for foundation paper piecing, I like to use these ones. Has a nice edge on it, and it, as I said, it butts right up against your fabric, and you can just cut it off. So I don't know if you can see it or not, but that little bit, that different, so this is sort of smoky, and then this is quite bright. When you're doing it, you can see, you can feel the lip get onto your paper, and then you can see where you're cutting. Now, if you've never done foundation paper piecing, this is going to be a pretty quick fly through, but on the channel I actually do have another mini quilt that we made, an autumn inspired one, and I actually show you how to make a little mug rug, how to make a small block. So if you've never done something like this before, I suggest that you go and give that a watch. It goes for about 30 minutes, but it's very in-depth, it's close up, you can see everything that's going on as well. So I will link that up down below, and also up on the cards up the top there, so you can go and suss that out. And you're also going to need some fabric. So today we are doing Dee-Dee's Here Kitty Kitty. Okay, so obviously we are doing a cat, and everything is, for the next 4 weeks, is going to be Halloween inspired. So I've just got my black and white because I'm doing a black cat, and I'm using white for my background. Anybody who knows me knows I love my white, but we've got to do a little bit of prep first. So grab your paper scissors and your paper rotary cutter, and everything else you can sort of sit out of the way. And then you're going to print off your pattern piece, and you're going to print it off through Adobe. Okay, so you want to save it to your computer and print it off. If you're using a device, make sure you print it through an Adobe printing service. So the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to join our pieces. So you can see we have 4 pages here. So we have to connect our pieces together, then we'll cut them out and we'll have our individual pieces. So to do that, I have in your pattern pieces, you will have pieces that have a really fine border and there's a dotted line, and then a thick one. The thick ones you want to set aside, and it's all the ones that have the really thin border. Okay, so it's about a 1/8 of an inch. Okay, and the 1/4 inch ones you want to just set aside. All right, and we don't want to cut those ones just yet. So grab your paper rotary cutter and your ruler. Get it out. I'm all thumbs again today. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to place my ruler on there, and I'm going to butt it right up against that line. And I'm not going to cut into the templates. I'm actually going to cut right on that line. Okay. I put some pressure down, and then I'm just going to slice that little bit off. Okay. And then I'm going to repeat for the next piece. So you can see it's just a small amount we take off. And then the same with this side. Okay. So you can see there, just a tiny little slither comes off. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we're just going to get our glue pen. You can get a paper glue pen. Where is that? I usually have all my glues here. So you can just get like a school glue pen that works, or this pen here will work as well. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to get, so I've got my A template, B, G, and I think D is the bottom one, but it's a bit cut off. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue, and then I'm going to line all my lines up. Okay. As I said, I'm just going to use my glue. And I just put a little bit on that. You can use sticky tape as well, but I don't recommend it if you don't have any. You can use it in a pinch, but it's not the best to work with. Okay, and then we're just going to line those up and then press that down. So now you can see our kitty cats sort of coming together. Then we'll grab our other piece. All right, so we're going to be having a lot of fun creating this and doing our Halloween stitching for DD Spooktober. It's going to be a great month. And I would love to see all of your creations as well. I would really love to see that. Now I'm just using paper out of my printer because that's what I have on hand. There are many different products that you can get that are on the market, but I don't do a lot of foundation paper piecing, so I don't have all the bells and whistles. I mean, this is the latest addition to my arsenal, but for the most part, I don't really have I don't do a lot of it, but I'm wanting to get back into it and do a bit more of it. All right, so this piece here, you can see we've got some half pieces. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it easy for myself to work with. I'm just going to take F and D. I'm going to cut them off, and I'm just roughly cutting around these, and I'm going to do the same with these two as well. Just make it a little bit easier to work with, and just set them aside. Okay, and just have D and F really handy. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. Now, we don't want to accidentally cut our other templates, so just be very mindful where you're cutting. Okay, and I'll just set that aside for now, and then I'm going to get my template D, and we'll start with that one first. Okay, so this is our top part, and you can see we've got a nice big thick amount there. And this is our bottom bit that we're going to connect. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim and glue these together. So you can see here we've got a little bit of a thin piece that we need to trim off so we can attach it to our thicker piece. I always take the thinnest amount off and leave the thicker bit so I've got more to work with. All right, let's take that off, and you can see why I have a paper rotary cutter now, because it makes it a little bit easier than fluffing around with a pair of scissors. All right, pop that out of the way. Make sure our lettering is going the right way. You can see there, that's just going to line up quite nicely. Okay, so grab your glue and then line it up. Make sure your lines are lining up. You don't want to overlap it, so you want to butt that edge right up against that dotted line. Okay, so that is now our template. All right, and we're going to do the exact same thing with template F as well. So we've got that thicker part, and then we've got our thin part. So let's get rid of that thinner part. A lot of fluffing around a little bit with foundation paper piecing to get started, but okay, so we don't need all this excess paper around it. So all I'm going to do is grab my rotary cutter, and you can use your scissors as well, and you just basically get rid of all that excess paper. Now, all right, well, we've got all our little template pieces and everything that we need. I'm just going to be using my small ruler today, so I can put this larger one away. Okay, so I'm going to need my glue pen, I'm going to need my ruler, I'm also going to need my fabric rotary cutter, a pair of thread snips, which I'll just sit at the sewing machine. I'm going to need a ruler if I'm not using the quarter ruler, so that's all I need. But when I go to square it all up, I'll want my larger ruler. You're also going to need a piece of cardstock as well, or template plastic I sometimes use. But I got these bookmarks. I got like, and I think there was 100 of them for like $1 off AliExpress, so they're perfect for that. I use them for the bookmarks, but I can also use them for that. So, and you also want to grab this as well. So you'll have your fabric and grab template A. We'll just work alphabetically. Okay, grab template A and set the rest aside. And you can see here that we've got some shaded area and some not shaded area. The shaded area is actually what the color fabric is going to go on. Okay, so what we're going to do, and then we're going to start at A1, and you're going to sew in sequence of the numbers. Okay, so from A1 to A6. So that is how our piece is going to go. And as I said, we've got a really good video on the channel that shows you how to do it on a smaller scale, so you don't have all these templates to worry about. So if you've not done it before, go and check it out. It's carded up top. It's listed down below. Go and check it out. It'll be 30 minutes of your time, but it's a really good video to watch because I get close up and personal to it, and I go through it step by step. All right, so I only need some little bits here. So all I do is I grab my scraps. Like, these are just leftover bits and pieces from fabric yardage that I've got, and I just chuck it in it. Like, I've got a black and white bin that I chuck it in, although there's not much left in it these days because I'm not making as many quilts. But basically I just pull them out, and as you get more confident with foundation paper piecing, your pieces will start to become smaller and smaller. You'll understand the process behind it, and you'll feel a little bit more comfortable. So I'm just going to do it as if I've only just started, and I'm just going to use bigger pieces. But really, I don't need a massive piece to go on here. Like, I don't need a 10-inch square to go on here. So I'll just cut a little 2.5, maybe 3-inch square. Okay, now what you need to remember too is, so you've got a solid dark line in here. That is where your fabric is going to sit, and then you've got this dotted line as well. You need to make sure your fabric comes out past that, because this is your seam allowance. Okay, it must be noisy car day today, because my street has had so many noisy cars going up and down it today. It's driving me mental. So basically, you want to make sure that your fabric Okay, I don't want a piece that's just this big. I want a fabric piece that's going to cover this here and this bit here, and also go 1/4 inch into this one here. Okay, so we want it to be able to fit over that. So if I had a 3-inch square, I'm going to have ample fabric. Another thing you can do, like if you're a little bit more advanced and you've done this before, grab your quilting ruler, and you can always measure it. So you know that we've got to go 1/4 past this line here. Okay, and because it's on a diagonal, we want to go a little bit more. All right, and I can see there that I'm only really going to need a 2.5 inch square, and I'm going to be fine. So I will just basically eyeball that and grab my fabric scissors, which I had out and I've put somewhere. Oh, where did they go? These ones will do. Don't know where my others. Oh, there they are over there. So all I'm going to do is, and I'm not going to use selvage fabric or anything like that. I'm just going to cut and eyeball it, roughly cut a square out of my fabric. Okay, then I'm going to get my glue pen and I'm going to flip it over. So if you've got a light box, I pretty much just hold it up and have the light going past it, and I can see the dark lines on it. But if you need a light box, grab a light box and you can just sit it on top. And I'm just going to grab my pen, put a little dot there, and then I'm going to face my fabric facing up. Okay, and I'm going to put that on. So if I flip this over, you can see that the fabric is coming past that, and that's exactly what I want. Okay, so I'll place that on, and next I want a piece of black fabric. So again, it is only a small piece. Okay, so I only need a small piece. So if I cut another 2-inch square, I should be right. Okay, and I'm just going to eyeball that again. And because I know I need 2 of them, I'm just going to cut 2 at a time. And set that aside. Get rid of my selvage. Alright. So now I don't need to really worry about gluing anything down now. I'll just pop that there like that. And I can see that that's going to go across really well. And then I'll just grab a pin. And then I'm going to pin that in place. Okay, but I'm going to pin it a little bit away from the edge of the fabric because I've got to sew this down. So you can see here, I'm going to sew right on that pin because we flip it over and we don't want that. So we want it to go on the diagonal so we can see that we're not going to stitch on that pin. Okay, so you can pin it this way, or you can pin it on this side, and I prefer to pin it on the other side because then I know it's never going to move. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch that down. Okay, so we've stitched that down, and you're just going to get rid of all your threads. That's where your thread snips come in handy. Get rid of all those. And then basically you've got the top threads as well. So you've just stitched on that line, unlike I did the first time because the phone rang and I made a mistake and stitched on the wrong line, so I wasn't concentrating. So you want to stitch on the line that connects A1 to A2, okay? So you can see there that we've got that all stitched down. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of our excess fabric. So I'm going to place that bookmark or your template plastic on to that line, and I'm going to fold my paper back, and then I'm just going to get my ruler and I'm going to butt it up. So you can see it's got that lip on it and it's not moving. Okay, so let me bring it up a little bit closer, and then we just trim that off. And you can get rid of your scraps, so you can keep them, whatever you want to do with them. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my fabric back, and then I'll just use my little roller, or you can use your iron, it's up to you. And you can see there that that has now gone across, and then I'm going to flip it back over, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my bookmark again and put it where A2 meets A3. and bring that back. Grab my quarter ruler, place it on, and get rid of that excess. Okay, so now that we've done those first two things, okay, that is going to make it super easy to line up our next piece. Okay, so the next piece is a white piece. Okay, let's grab a white piece. Again, I'm just going to cut a little square. It doesn't have to be perfect. I haven't trimmed the rest of it because we'll trim that up once we've finished the whole strip. Okay, and then I'm going to place that on there. Okay, with the right sides touching. And then I'll flip that, grab my pin. Where did I put that pin? Oh, around here. And I'll put my pin in. And then I'm going to sew where A2 and A3 meet. And I'm just going to continue doing that for the rest of the strip. See, we've just created our little ears for our little kitty cat. All right, so basically what we can do now that we've got our template, we can trim this up. So you've got that dotted line, you can trim up to that dotted line, and that's going to get rid of all of our little excess bits of fabric and get rid of all that paper and all the rest of it. And this is a very, very messy craft. So basically what I'm going to do now is I'm going to continue on doing that. I'm going to trim this up. Get all my paper out of the way and fabric out of the way. Set that there. And then once I have trimmed it all up, what I will do then is I will give it a really good press and then just set that aside. And as you can see, it's a pretty messy craft. If you're not into mess and you want it a little bit more organized, you can use like little baskets to put each fabric in, and then that way all your scraps will go into that. But I like the creativity of this and the haphazardness of it, and just, you know, putting everything everywhere it needs to go. Alright, so I'm going to trim that up. Get rid of all that rubbish. Right. And you just trim it up following those dotted lines. Okay. Right. There we go. And that is our first piece done. So that is the ears and the back of the top of the back of the cat. Okay, so continue doing that, and as you come to angles and stuff like that, my suggestion to you is to place your fabric down and pretend like you've sewn it down by putting a pin in and flipping it over, making sure. So that's why you're seeing when I done this one here, because it had a bit of a weird angle and it was long and I was sewing on the edge of a triangle and flipping it out. I had to make it a little bit wider and a little bit longer, but I can still use these pieces of fabric in it because there'll be smaller bits that to come, you know, like my first bit down here. I can, you know, possibly use that bigger bit there, or I can use it for that triangle, or here on B1, you know, I can use a bit and that'll cover it because it's just got to cover a 1/4 inch this way. Do you know what I mean? So just make sure that you just test it before you end up flipping it over, okay? Because otherwise you might end up stitching something down, and because you have such a tight seam, stitches, because you reduce your stitches down to make it easy to get the paper off, it's going to be pretty difficult to unpick, okay? So just give it a press. So you don't need to iron it, you just need to press it. And I'm loving my ironing pad, it's so good. I can sit my, as I said, I can sit my rulers under it, and I can leave that up there, and then I can leave that up on the ironing pad out of the way, because we don't want to handle it too much now. So just leave that up there and it's good to go. So we're just going to continue on working on each one, and as I said, we're going to follow the numbers in sequence, and yeah, we'll have this done in no time. All right, so I'm going to continue on with that. Okay, so now we need to assemble it, and included in your pattern is a little diagram just to show you where everything's got to go, and it doesn't go in alphabetical order, so don't get caught up like that. That's why we leave everything to the last. Alright, so set that aside, and when you're ready, just flip everything over, and then that way we can assemble it. If any of your papers have come undone, just put a little bit of glue on it to just stick it back down together. And then once we have our layout done, which I'm going to grab my design board and put it on that. And then once we've got our layout done, basically we're just going to join the rows together. And of course we're going to stitch on the lines, the solid lines, which are our seam allowance. Alright, so let me just get these out of the way. I'll just put my little design up there so I know where I'm going and I'm not getting directionally challenged. Get rid of some of my little bits and pieces. Have a sip of coffee. Alright, let me just sit that up there. Okay, now basically what I do is I just flip everything over, and then I find the first one, which is A. The next one is B. Okay, and so that goes like so. And then the next one is D that I'm going to put on, and it goes that way. Yep, that's right, that's where it goes. Just double checking. Okay, it looks a little bit skewiff at the moment, but don't forget this is all, our seams are included, so when we sew it together it'll cinch in and everything that we need it to do. The next one is E, which is pretty easy. Okay, so basically when we're sewing it, we have it to us this way, and when we turn it over, the E4 will end up on this side. Okay, so that's what you want to look for. And then the next one we're looking for is C, which is the bottom one. And then we have, oh, I've put, hang on a sec, come down a bit. I've got to put G in. I just skipped over G altogether. So that is going to look a little bit better, don't you think? Yeah. Think to myself, why is that looking a bit weird? Alright, so my design mat's not big enough. But that's because all the seam allowances are in it. But it gives you a general idea. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to methodically sew from the top all the way to the bottom. And I just place these on top of one another. Okay, now obviously you've got this one going out past it because we still have F, which that will go on last. Okay, so we're going to, like we do when we assemble blocks, like patchwork blocks, we work methodically to put the rows together. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so I've got A up here, I'm going to place that on top of B. I'm going to line this edge up here because this one hangs over. Okay, because that will meet up with our angle we've got here. All right. So I tend to use wonder clips at this stage because it's just easier than trying to get pinned through two things of paper and two things of fabric, and it works fine. Okay, and then what you're going to do is you're not going to stitch in the seam allowance, you're going to stitch on this line. Okay, all the way down. Now at this point, this is when I start to backstitch, at the beginning and at the end, because we're going to have the block just sort of sitting out there. Now at this end of the block, I can go off the edge. Just at this one I can't because I've got that angle, so I have to start in here. So make sure when you put A to B that you start right in on this point, and then you can go off and reverse down here because this is going to be part of the quilt. Now we're not adding anything onto it, we're not butting another block up to it or anything like that. We're going to be putting sashing onto it. Alright, so head over to the sewing machine and stitch that down. Okay, so now you can see they're sewing this together and it's all matching up really nicely. Okay, now it will be a little bit stiff and whatnot to roll it over, but that's okay. Just leave the paper in it. Don't remove the paper until we're ready to assemble. That way it'll just stay nice for you. Okay, and then I'm just going to continue all the way down. And then once we're finished doing all these rows, that is when we will give it a really good press, and then we'll put the last bit on, which is part of the tail. Okay, so just lining that up, and just double check your layout picture that you've got it in the right place. Okay, so we now have our little cat all put together. I did have to unpick this one because I put it around the wrong way. I twisted it, so I unpicked that, but you didn't see that. I took that out. So what happened was I'd flipped it up the wrong way and it just didn't line up. So now what we need to do is we are going to give this a really good press. We're going to leave the paper on. If your bits in the seam come out, that's fine. You can see here because I've had to unpick it. It makes it pretty brittle. But just give it a really good press. Get rid of any long threads that might be in the way. And then we'll put our last piece on. So we have our kitty cats going this way. And we have F2, which is coming in here. Okay, so this is basically getting sewn onto it. All right, so we will flip this over. And we are going to... Now, I know that you're all looking at your device going, how is that going to work? And some of you are going, no, not Y seams. But that's okay. We don't have to worry about it. All we need to do is make sure that our edges are lined up and our bottom is lined up. Okay. And basically we will come up here and we will stop just a little ways, and you'll get to see that on camera. We'll just stop a little ways and then we'll be able to, and I'm going to mimic it with pins just to show you. Okay, so we are going to just spin that around. So everything down this edge is lining up. Okay. Let's pop that pin there. Just pop this one down here. Okay, and when we flip it over, if we stop a little ways, we can actually bring this together. Okay, like a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle. We just stop before that little seam there, and then this will end up, we'll be able to bring it together and sew it. Okay, it's a bit hard when it's not sewn because it just keeps moving, but we will stop just before the end, and it's a little bit like origami. Okay, so it'll end up sitting nicely and we'll have a nice mitered corner, so to speak. Okay, so that obviously will be underneath and it'll all line up really nicely, and then we'll have a nice little kitty cat tail. All right, so what I want you to do when you're doing this and you're putting it together, make sure everything is lined up. Okay, and I'm just checking to make sure that my lines are lining up, and if you're not sure if they are or not, just put a pin into the seam here and poke it through and it should come out on the line. Okay, and then you'll know that you're lined up. Alright, so I'm going to just put a pin in here just to remind me to stop about 1/4 inch away from that seam, so about there. Okay, so I'm just going to pop a pin there, and that's just going to remind me to stop. Okay, and you will see this all on the other angle at the sewing machine. Okay, actually I'll put some wonder clips on that because it's a little bit easier. Okay. Alright, let's head over. Now don't forget to do a back stitch just here. Sorry, my audio actually cut out. So you can see here that I am trying to line it up, and I've stopped too short, so I'm putting a couple more stitches in, and that way it'll come closer to where I need to get it to fold. It is a little bit tricky, but you can do it, so don't stress. So I've put those couple of extra stitches in, and it turned out that I did a couple too many, so I'm just going to snip them out, and then you'll see that it'll just go together, and I will make it sit down nice and flat, and then I will stitch it together. So here you can see I'm just snipping them out. I put in 2, maybe 3 stitches too many. You've got to come up about 1/4 of an inch away from where you need to turn it. So you can see now I've taken those stitches out, and it's just folding onto itself. And then I just pinch it together and get it to lay down nice and flat. And then I'm going to stitch on that line, and that will be our 1/4 inch. And then our Y seam will open up really nicely. We can give it a press, and you'll notice once you've done it, it'll be on the 45-degree angle. So here you can see I'm just starting to sew. And that's it, we're done. Okay, so let's head over to the cutting mat and I'll have a closer look at what we've done. Okay, so that is the Here Kitty Kitty block. Hope that you enjoyed making that. It's a pretty simple block to make with a little bit of a tricky maneuver up here, but as you can see, it can be done. It's just like you've just got to fold it and get the fabric all out of the way, and then you can just stitch it. But as I said, you can see here, I've probably gone 1 stitch too far. And I could probably pick that out and relax it a little bit and play around with it. And I just took that little bit of extra off, and it is measuring, it should be measuring about 12.5 inches at this point, which it is. So we are right to leave that as it is. So if you just give that a really good press and then just set it aside. Now, as I said, when we've gone through this, the thing to remember is we're going to assemble the kitty cat first, the body of the kitty cat, and this goes on last. And just come up, and as you've seen on the B-roll that at the machine, that I just had to take a couple of stitches out. I probably should have taken that extra one out and it would have sat perfectly. So sometimes you've got to do that. So that is why you do not backstitch up here, okay? Because it's a lot easier if you don't, because you can just put a little bit of pressure on it and you can see those threads and you can just pop them out. Make sure that you stitch on the line, and once you, except for the first row, which is row A, every other one we want to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoyed making the Here Kitty Kitty block. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and also if you've yet to subscribe, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But that's it from me today. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and I will see you all again next week for block 2. Bye for now.